I would say then that the whole field of expert witness testimony, again, would be disavowed by what you are quoting in the Goldwater rule. And we know that's not the case, because if it was, we would not be allowed to do it.
And you said the rule was for presidents, right? And
that was initially for presidents, yes.
And the name of the rule came from that. But the rule says it is unethical for a psychiatrist to offer a professional opinion about an individual. That's right, sir. It's not just presidents, it's not public figures, it's individuals.
Funny, it was named after them. According to your logic, if you don't put something in the title, it's not true. That's what you told me this yourself. Therefore, it could not be considered ethical. And I'm telling you how that's applicable to not just expert law, but also managed care. It's applicable to multiple branches of medicine. Hospital duration of hospitalization stay, they get evaluated. So tell me where you want me to end this.
Well,
sir.
why don't we talk about what you just testified to? Because I didn't ask you anything about that. I asked you whether, under this rubric, under this principle of medical ethics, have you acted unethically? Yes or no?
No. As an expert witness, I have not acted unethically. And if you want the jury to believe that expert witnesses are unethical, then I guess that's for them to decide.
Yes or no,
for them
sir.
to decide.
You said no. Let's go to the next question.
Are unethical. Based on that, I am not going to sit here and disagree with you and waste everyone's time. I think it's fairly obvious. So thank you. Go ahead. These were your words. I'm just saying them back how they're interpreted.
Okay. Let's start with the easy question then. Maybe we can.
That was pretty easy. Go ahead.
All right, Doctor, you're going to have to just answer the questions.
Okay. Sorry about that. Getting into it.
You need to just answer the questions,
Okay.
Dr. Spiegel.
You are not rendering any diagnosis whatsoever of Mr. Depp today or ever.
Answer is yes.
But that wasn't an issue, was it? Whether Mr. Depp used substances. I mean, you said you've gone through the record. That wasn't really an issue at this trial. He's said it from day one.
Oh, so you're saying he's already admitted to the diagnosis?
He's already admitted to the use of the substances.
Oh. Well, again, there's a difference between admitting to substance use and substance use disorder.
Let's go back to what you just said about narcissistic personality traits.
Yes.
Narcissistic personality disorder is a DSM-5 diagnosis, correct?
Correct.
Diagnostic personality, and you haven't testified that Mr. Depp has narcissistic personality disorder, have you?
I would certainly, if I didn't, I'm certainly thinking that, but at least I'm going to say he has traits, which are characteristics of provisional diagnosis of, it's a provisional diagnosis of probably narcissistic personality disorder. But yeah, I mean, I do believe that.
Well, when you say provisional diagnosis, you know the DSM-5 requires, in order to find that diagnosis, 5 of the 9 factors. Mm-hmm. And you haven't done that analysis. You've never made that diagnosis. You've just identified certain factors
that are criteria for the diagnosis.
Right. But you need 5 of 9 to get to the diagnosis. You've already told us that you didn't make a diagnosis. You're just identifying traits, correct?
I'm identifying traits that are consistent with the diagnosis, yes.
Right. There's a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, mm-hmm. right?
Yes, sir.
And that one is has some correlation with IPV, right?
Narcissism has correlation with IPV. Again, you're not allowing me to answer. You're splitting hairs. You're splitting hairs between the traits that are consistent with, which all I'm commenting on is behaviors and traits that are consistent with the diagnosis and Mr. Depp. Narcissism, absolutely. I said cluster. No,
let me be more precise then.
Okay.
Any narcissistic trait in and of itself is a risk factor for IPV.
But you are mischaracterizing what I said. What I said, I'm pretty sure I said cluster. If you look at all the...
But cluster B, so let's do that for a minute. Borderline personality disorder is a risk factor for IPV.
As part of cluster B traits, yes.
Histrionic personality disorder is a risk factor for IPV.
Less so.
But
Less so. Less so. I mean,
cluster-
it's a risk factor, but less so, yes.
Yeah.
Less so. Significantly less so.
All right. So which traits under narcissistic, before I move on there, there's only been one diagnosis in court of personality disorders, correct?
I'm not sure who you're referring to. Are you referring to Mr. Depp, Ms. Hurt? Who? I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Do you understand that there was a medical examination done of Ms. Hurt?
Yes, I did.
Do you understand that the testimony was ultimately that Ms. Hurd suffers from 2 personality disorders?
Okay, so I'm just being specific. I just wanted to know if you're talking about Ms. Hurt or Mr. Depp. So that's all I was asking you.
Yes or no to my question?
Which was there's only one diagnosis of, Ms. Hurd was diagnosed with that.
Yeah, and both of the diagnoses are in cluster. I'm talking about, do you know the rule?
I'm not a member of the AMA, so I don't
Okay, great.
read the rule.
We
Okay.
can move on. You don't know the rule.
Okay.
All right. You rendered an opinion about Mr. Depp's purported cognitive impairment.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you use as a baseline?
A baseline for speed. All I'm saying
Let
to
me
you is,
ask you about pirates, though. You compared pirates to the to the depositions given in this case.
then I apologize for what I said. Then I misspoke.
You misspoke? You didn't make the comparison?
Right now, just a second ago? Just a second ago, I may have said that I misspoke. I apologize, I misspoke.
Okay. Because you know you can't compare pirates to sworn testimony, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But you can, but as an aside, you can judge someone's processing speed at any time. Like I'm judging yours right now, you're judging mine. We all judge processing speed as a baseline because of what we know about each other. I would say your processing speed right now is not slow. So, I mean, we're judging processing speed. I'm just saying to you.
Yeah. But no, any of Mr. Depp's other portrayals in movies, did that affect your analysis of processing speed?
Only I've seen him interact on interviews, and that was it.
Right.
When he wasn't in movies.
Right. But Willy Wonka doesn't matter to you? You see him in that movie, Charlie and Chocolate Factory? Did you look at that one when you were comparing his processing speed?
Do I have to answer that question, Your Honor?
You have to answer questions. Yes, sir.
No, you'll be happy to know I didn't see Willy Wonka. I didn't see 21 Jump Street when it happened, or whatever it was about. No, I did not.
All right. You made a very kind admission, I think, early on in your deposition, that you're not claiming to be a better actor than Mr. Depp. That's correct, isn't it?
100%.
All right. But with respect to acting, you know that actors actually rehearse for their parts and work on the language, diction, timing of their dialogue as part of that rehearsal?
If you say that, I'm not an actor, so I don't know what goes on. I can't tell you. I have no idea what goes on in acting.
Okay. But you don't know enough about acting to know whether actors rehearse?
Sir, I am not an expert in acting. I have no idea what an actor does.
Okay. During your deposition, what were the circumstances under which you decided to call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Under somebody call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Yeah, you called Mr. Depp an idiot in your deposition. Why
Oh, I
did you
think.
do that?
Okay. So I think it was in the context. I think it was in the. You probably should read the context of it because I think the context was, and I'm trying to. I don't.
Yeah. idiot a professional opinion?
I wasn't rendering professional opinion, no.
Is it a psychiatric opinion?
And that follows the Goldwater rule.
How does it follow the?
Oh, you just said that I'm not rendering a professional opinion. I just said idiot. That's not a Goldwater.
So idiot is not a professional opinion? Mm-hmm. Is it your practice to describe people as idiots?
My practice describe people. In my practice? No, I don't describe people my clinical cases as idiots or patients as idiots or victims as idiots. No, sir.
But you sat for a deposition in this case and described the plaintiff as an idiot, correct?
You gave me 9 hours of deposition, and if I said the word idiot, it was an idiot in planning. It wasn't making him an idiot. I don't know Mr. Depp's IQ. I don't know his overall functioning. So therefore, if I said it, it was an idiot in planning, which is what I meant to come across as.
All right. So you did say you don't know his overall functioning, but you made some testimony today as to some evaluations you made relative to his functioning. You would agree with me that it's probably a good idea to think about the questions that are asked you in a court proceeding before answering them.
Am I allowed to answer that question?
Yes.
Okay. So what I meant by function, what I said by function, I believe that his agent reported how late he was.
Testified.
I'm sorry, what?
On the manner in which he testified.
On the manner, I'm sorry, I'm not being difficult. I can't hear. I'm sorry. On what?
I was asking you about the cognitive decline
Yes.
testimony that you made.
Yes.
And it was my understanding that at least a portion of that testimony that you rendered was that you derived some evidence of cognitive decline from the way Mr. Depp testified.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I said, yes.
Right. And so all I'm asking you is, don't you think it's a good idea when you're in the middle of a court proceeding to answer questions carefully?
Again, professionally, we diagnose patients with a neurocognitive disorder by gross evaluation all the time with cognitive. On the thought that, again, age normal controls, I'm just saying, age normal to prove, which is what you asked me, the important part was what I said. And that was irrefutable.
The important part is that he gave the mini mental status exam?
Yes, sir.
All right.
That's
Let's talk about the mini mental status exam. Scored on a 30-point scale, right?
Yes.
All right. And it's an exam that basically is most often used for, what, Alzheimer's, dementia, those kind of testing?
It's an exam that tests cognition in all psychiatric illnesses, not just Alzheimer's. It was made for dementia for Alzheimer's, but is the standard, has been the standard for testing cognition in all psychiatric illness, substance use disorders included.
Okay. Now, there is an element of that exam that requires drawing, correct?
Yes.
So you don't know what drawing Mr. Depp did or whether the drawing should have been fully scored.
I wasn't questioning his visual spatial perceptual skills, which is what that does.
Right. And you don't know what score Mr. Depp received on the exam.
I was very specific. I know 3 words, not remembering at 5 minutes. That's all I said.
3 words, not remembering 5 minutes, and he remembered one of them, right? It's the only section you testified about. And for all you know, that with respect to the exam that you're relying on, Mr. Depp scored 27 out of 30.
And that would be telling, though, cognitive, if you score 27 out of 30 and you miss 3 points. But an answer.
But wait a minute. You started that question with short of drugs and alcohol and spent 35 minutes talking about his use of drugs and alcohol. Isn't that right?
Oh, I'm agreeing. I thought I agreed with you. I think I agreed. I said that drugs and alcohol can absolutely affect cognition. I'm not sure. Yeah, I agree, but I'm not sure if that's a problem. I agree with you on that.
All right. I'm going to rely on it in your testimony to say that he's cognitively impaired.
Which is what we do in clinical medicine, sir.
Okay. You rely on tests that you don't know when it was administered, you don't know the score of the test, and you don't know the state of the person being tested, but you're going to rely on it anyway.
Again,
You don't commit IPV, correct?
they are saying people who have substance use disorders, the majority of them, over 50% do. So over 50% do. So that's medical.
The answer is yes. And somebody can have these narcissistic personality traits and substance abuse disorder and never commit IPV, right?
So, along that line,
Right.
about 80 to 90% of people who commit IPV have a personality disorder. So the answer is less than about 10% obviously do not.
Right. There are more close links with IPV for borderline personality disorder than narcissistic personality disorder. Correct, sir?
I'm not going to agree with that.
No?
I'm not saying there are more links. I would say to you there are absolute. If you're asking me if there are links, the answer is absolutely. If you're saying to me more, I can show studies say yes, show studies say that. That has not been absolutely definitively correlated. No.
No.
Absolutely not.
MDMA. What is it?
Ecstasy.
Yeah. Someone cutting off their own finger on MDMA?
Have I ever heard of it?
Yeah.
No, I can only give you one example.
Hadn't seen that one before. Okay. So, Seroquel. That one puts you to sleep, right?
If you want a phrase of barbiturate putting you to sleep, then the answer is yes.
Yeah, you heard Mr. Depp talking about sometimes being on the nod, right?
And again, I think I explained Seroquel very well this morning.
Good. I'm going to ask him a few more questions.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right. You kept making references to street value. Why were you doing that?
Because that's why people with substance use disorder use quetiapine and Seroquel.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
That's why people who use quetiapine or Seroquel it sells on the street because it's so barbiturate-like in effect.
Right, but you said that Mr. Depp.
And oxycodone, does that count? Because that's also probably not a good thing. Just because you have a prescription doesn't mean that.
I think Mr. Depp would agree with you it wasn't a good thing.
Just because you have a prescription doesn't mean you can't abuse it.
No, I'm not suggesting you're abusing it. I'm just wondering why your testimony was in any way tied to street value when every single drug you referenced, Mr. Depp had legally.
Again, you can have prescription substance abuse, and we know that, correct? No, I shouldn't be asking that. We can have prescription substance to be knocked out. Yes, I agree, but I'm not sure at the end of the day if she'd have vomitus over you either, because I've never seen Seroquel do that. So when he was passed out in the chair, he also had vomitus over him. I've never seen Seroquel do that ever.
Neurontin is another one of the drugs you testified about. That one's also prescribed, right?
Yes, it is.
And what's the prescription for that?
What's it used for? And what's its indication, or what's its used
What's
for?
its indication?
I mean, its indication is for seizures. It may have one pain indication.
You talked about the fact that Mr. Depp indicates that from time to time he uses an earpiece.
I read that, yes.
Okay. Did you read the testimony of Mr. Wyatt, who told you what was being pumped into that earpiece?
Yeah, I mean, if I remember right, I mean, I think it was lines, right?
No, it was music.
It was music, not his line?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if Mr. Depp was listening to music rather than being fed his lines, does that change your opinion as to his cognitive function?
if he was never fed his lines through the earpiece, which I know he was, but read he was, and that may have been that example, Mr. Wyatt may have said that it was music. I guess the question is, were you having the music during the actual talking of your lines? Is that what you're saying to me?
Gave lectures, you wouldn't use an earpiece, but you're not telling anybody how to act.
Right, I would not use an earpiece during lectures.
Right.
But I don't know what the standard for standard as Hollywood is for that. I have no idea.
Your testimony
Pieces, I find that hard to believe.
Yeah,
But-
and
but-
there's not one whit of evidence that this ever happened here.
I guess what I said. I just said I find it hard to believe. I didn't say it. I said I find it hard to believe. That's all I said.
Oh, yeah, but what you found hard to believe, sir, was that every line of the script was pumped through an earpiece. Where did you ever get the idea that occurred?
That's what that's what I read in the court review, the court evidence. That's where I got it from.
Right. And you know whether Marlon Brando used an earpiece?
Isn't he dead?
Yeah.
So the answer is no. He does not use one now.
Oh, no, I used the past tense, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know nothing. I will concede to you, I know nothing about acting. I will concede to you 100%. If that is the standard and people are done that acting, then I apologize and that was wrong on my part. If that's the standard, I'm wrong. I don't know.
Okay. Let's go with that. No further questions.
All right. How long is your return?
A bit. You may want to take.
All right, let's go ahead and break for lunch then, ladies and